Hello and welcome to another episode of Literary Liberation Podcast. Today we will be discussing, analyzing, and reviewing Katabasis by R.F. Kuang. If you have the time and the money to donate, you should donate to the Gaza Lifeline Initiative. It's to get water and money for water in northern Gaza, and I'll have that listed in our link tree. It'll also be listed in the links on here. If you're watching YouTube, we're not putting links on YouTube anymore because they will not let us unless we prove that we have IDs, and that's really fucking weird. So we are not doing that. Links will be either in the Spotify, Apple Podcast, mainstream podcast. They'll have all the links, or our link tree will have a link. Maybe I'll make a doc for the episode. I don't know. Just putting that out there as soon as we get here because YouTube has just been really fucking stupid. Anyways, for more content outside of the podcast, please check out our Instagram and TikTok at Literary Liberation and Twitter at LitLib Podcast. I'm your co-host, Mariah. You can find me at Hungry Rye on all social media platforms, including Substack.
And I'm your co-host, Kristen. You can find me at TensTBR on all social media platforms that matter.
We're here. We're not even a week out from release dates. This book just came out on Tuesday. Today is Sunday, August 31st when we are filming this, so all of the numbers, stats, reviews, everything that we're basing this on is just what has been coming in really either with the ARC readers or
People that have been
from just we did it. We're
Yeah.
here. I didn't think we were going to make it for a little bit, but
Why?
well, one, I wanted to tandem read this, and my
I
copy, like many other people that pre-ordered, was very delayed. So I didn't get it until yesterday or something, day before,
I went
and I
to
had to binge read it.
walked into Target the day it came out and walked out of Target and this was in my hand. I didn't even get it. Tyler got it for me, so.
Must be nice.
But I also got the Kindle edition, so I did read it on Kindle. And then my copy, and I think Mariah's copies too, we have the misprinted edition too. So that's something with this book. I don't know if it's all of the US special editions, but it is a good chunk of them where on a certain page, the graphs are wrong. Like the graphic is supposed to be a different graphic than what it is.
So give it 5 years and these are going to be worth a pretty penny. This is
Maybe.
how my retirement's going to get paid for. Holding on
I
to
don't
this
know. It
book.
seems like a lot of people got it. So, because are they even pulling the ones off the shelves?
I don't think so. It's such a small thing. I don't think. I mean, they'll probably end up the next printing will be fixed, but
Mm-hmm.
I honestly don't
I
know how
saw some
many
people
of these books
saying
got
that their
pre-ordered.
US arcs were messed up in the same way too. So it's crazy that was never caught early on.
Controversy. What could it be? I don't know. They probably just. I have no idea
Overlooked.
why nobody caught it.
I don't know either. Which I'm guessing. Well, because I don't even understand. I guess we're not in book publishing at all. So yeah, I don't know if this is something where they put in the graphics last or something. Which there's not that many graphics in this. I think there's really just that section where there's the 3, and then at the very end of the book there's also graphics shown.
Yeah, I have no idea. I'll have to ask my person on the inside of what they do. But I don't have the information right now. So if I do find it out by the time this gets posted, you'll see a graphic on the screen of what ends up happening. So maybe that's happening right now. Maybe it's not. But don't worry, because we're just gonna get into what the book is about. What the book is about. We're speaking. I'm talking in third person. I am
Um,
speaking incorrectly and trying to get the words out. And we're gonna.
this is a great
I think most
podcast
people know
so
what
far.
this. I think most people know what this book is. This is hard to talk about because it's been such an anticipated read for so many people this year.
I think it was probably our most anticipated read this year, I would
Yes.
say. I have a bigger one, I think. Strength of the Few coming out in November. That's probably my number 1. But I say this is a very close second.
Yeah. I mean, I'm reading Strength of the Few, but it's not anticipating it. It's more
Oh, I'm so
grit and
excited for
bearing
it.
and waiting for it
I
to come
can't
out.
wait.
I have high hopes, in the same way I had very high hopes for this, and many people did, and
Well, okay,
as
so
many
what
people may
this is
have seen
about,
in your bookish spaces. Okay, we can get into what
if
it's
you
about
don't
first.
know, it follows two academic rivals going down to the underworld to get uh like a recommendation letter for a future job, basically, because you find out, I'd say in the first 50 pages, you find out that this academic advisor guy died in an accident, but was it really an accident or was it the main character's fault? Is kind of what's implied. And so then whether it's for guilt to go down there or what kinds of ends up just following that journey of going through the underworld, basically. I'd say also, if you're like on the fence about reading this, I think if you're a big Percy Jackson kid growing up, and if you're watching the video at the top, you can see like my whole Percy Jackson collection. I imagine this is like almost like an adult retelling of The House of Hades by Rick Riordan. That's like the vibes I was getting, and so I was kind of eating this up. Not gonna lie.
We'll get into that more later. I have my own. It's been degrading as time has gone on and I've sat on this, which is kind of what was reflective of a lot of ARC readers. I know Chris and I both spend a lot of time on just not just spent, in general, we're on Book Talk. That
Mhm.
is part of our feed. We see a lot of the stuff that was coming in. So when ARC readers were first getting the book, there was mixed reviews coming in, a lot of, like, 3 and 4-star reviews, and that seems to have also rolled over to the ratings that this book has continued to get. It has gone up. It was less than a 4-star review when I first checked it out when we started reading it, and now it's at a 4.00 star rating right now, but there's only 4.6 thousand ratings, and there is 2.2 K
Written reviews.
reviews. So this can change. Anything can change in the time between us posting this or whenever anyone that goes to listen to this because it is so like we're 5 days out. I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know if it's gonna go down or if it's gonna go up.
I mean, if it follows this trend, it'll probably be going up because I personally, the way the ARC readers were like, I guess, like influencing this book and like talking about this book too, I feel like would be important to talk about because the way that I think the ARC readers were acting, like you needed to read like this whole set of required reading before you read this book, and you need to have so much prior academic novels, and that this is like akin to reading a textbook. I don't agree with that at all. I don't think it's as complicated as anybody's making it seem. Like, obviously, it is a little bit more, like, wordy, I guess you would say, than, like, your typical, like, book, but I don't think it's anything, like, crazy where you need to be, like, an academic scholar in post-grad school right now to pick this up and read it. Like, I'm a college dropout, and I
No,
comprehended everything just fine.
I remembered when well they say oh the stack of books that people were reading. They were reading like Dante's Inferno. They were reading the Odyssey, which
The
after
Odyssey is
finishing
not
this,
necessary at all,
that was why the fuck were people reading that? I don't know. The Inferno, I've read it. You could read it, but also I think this did a sufficient job of just explaining, like, the basics of what the Inferno was.
yeah. I
Um,
don't think that was necessary at all.
and
I've never read it, but I
I don't
think
think some of the other books that were recommended those are, like, the I remember seeing, and there were some other random ones. The Iliad was also it was, like, the Iliad and the Odyssey.
which those are not needed at all, I guess, unless you care, like, about, like, the underworld and, like, Tartarus is, like, the Greek underworld sorta thing where, like, all of the monsters get banished to in, like, Greek mythology, but I feel like it's only, like there's only, like, slight references of that throughout, where it's nothing super major, like, it's just, like, a little bit of, "Ooh," Like, you don't need to be an expert in any of those fields, it's just, like, Easter eggs more so.
I think which is interesting because a lot of people say that R.F. Wang is a over-explainer, yet people were prepping by reading all of this, so it was like, which is it?
Yeah,
Is
you're you
she over-explaining, or do you need
under-explaining where you
more
need
supplementary
supplementary.
text to understand it?
Yeah, which I don't think I don't think, and the thing is that, like, people have a big complaint about, like, R.F. Kuang over-explaining, which me and Mariah have only read this and Babel too, so our scope is very limited as well about, like, all of R.F. Kuang's work, but I don't think in the way that this is written, like, overly in any way either. Like, I really like R.F. Kuang's writing style, and I think it feels really accessible to more complex ideas than what you would typically get in, like, standard, like, modern fantasies now.
I I mean, I don't wanna get into spoilers unless you're ready to get into spoilers, 'cause I have a very different opinion on this book than you do. I don't think this one was all that accessible. I thought it was far too much exposition happening.
Well, that
It
doesn't
was
mean
just a
that is
lot.
I don't think that's a critique of what the I think well, people whenever they complain about that, they're complaining that, like, R.F. Kuang beats you over the head with, like, what her messaging is, and I don't feel like that's done in this book either.
No. No,
But
not in
that's what
this, but
people
also
say, though, about her work.
she does write like an academic, and that wasn't inherently a problem with Babel. I enjoyed it. I think the topics at hand were very it was necessary in order to make sure people like, understood what was happening, and I think that was something that was lacking in, like, The Hunger Games. So, objectively, I'm going to recommend and gravitate towards recommending Babel on the
Mhm.
necessity of violence, versus Hunger Games. If I have to pick between the 2, that's what I'm gonna go with.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily anything new or all that radical when if you're, like, a very
Well read.
read Marxist, you know about, like, revolutionary stuff, like, it's not going to be anything new,
No.
but
But
it
I
is
think
the better alternative to get people thinking. This book, though, I this is not, like, political in the way Babel is, and I was under the impression that maybe 'cause, what I've seen about all of her books is that they're all discussing, like, really big, heavy topics, and this one is just philosophy, like, this is a primer for philosophy,
I think
and
this one
that can be good. I
I think this one
I
does
didn't
still
think it was
have
doing anything.
some strong political messaging. I think it talks about, like, I've seen other people talk about this online too, like, because Babbel is talking about, like, academic as a whole and, like, the colonization surrounding it and, like, the ways, like, as a whole institution versus, Katabasis is a lot more individual and, like, smaller scale and that sort of thing, and I think that's one thing that you probably like more is the more worldly, well-rounded, like, big picture sort of where I feel like this is just a very, like, individual story that
I
R.F. Kuang
think
wanted to
the
tell.
magic system and the philosophy overshadowed the political messaging of this book, and I have a lot of qualms and quibbles, so if I think I'm just gonna mark this is going to be our spoiler zone because I don't know how else to talk about this. If you wanna know anything about the author's controversies, I'm going to link some things. There has been some weird stuff because we could talk a little bit about her politics real quick, is that back during the election, she made this really weird post saying that voting for Kamala Harris was an act of solidarity with Palestinians, and a lot of people took contention with it, and I think it's absolutely valid, especially since she had been pretty much radio silent on Gaza up until that point. I know she signed a letter, I think, standing in solidarity, but she has a huge platform, and a lot of people were just like, "Hey, this is really weird that you had said this." And then I mean, that's all we've really seen from her. I don't know if she talks about it at
Book signing
her,
events?
like yeah, book signings or any of her book events, but I she also has social media. She has social media, she could.
Yeah.
It's not that fucking hard.
Like, even just, like, a small post or something like that, even just on her story, like, highlighting a specific instance, or, like, something going on in Gaza because it is very topical and everybody is talking about it, where I do think it is weird to, like, promote, like, Kamala Harris in the same post you're talking about Palestine rather than just making, like, an individual post about, um, Palestine, and then also, like, if you want people to vote for Kamala Harris, whatever, like, I can understand that, but at least other people that have, like if they were talking about voting for Kamala, they would critique her stance on Gaza. If they were like, "I'm voting for Kamala because I feel like I have to blah blah blah," but her stance on Gaza is wrong. Like that has been from like influencers and things like that that I follow and that I usually agree with their takes. If they were promoting Kamala, they were at least critiquing her stance on Gaza, which RF Kwong has not done, which is objectively like wrong.
It's a really weird thing to come from reading Babel, which we didn't really know much about her aside from the Poppy War and Yellowface, and we knew kind of the essence of what both of those books were about, and then to see that post, which
Hmm.
I didn't even see it initially when it had come out, I don't remember. It wasn't until, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago
Oh, I
that
saw
somebody
it whenever
had released it.
I thought we talked about it whenever the election season was. I mean, 6 months ago was oh, I
Yeah,
guess a
we
little bit more
did.
than six. I mean, the election was only not even a year ago at this point.
I don't remember because we recorded Babel. It was, like,
We
one of our
recorded that
first,
way
like
before we
yeah.
recorded Babel after like, before the 2024 election, though, so that wouldn't have been mainstream news.
Set the bar pretty high for me at least. So, that is kind of like my mindset. I think if you're going into this book expecting it to be to the level that it was, it's not going to do that for you. I also think heed the warning or heed the label of romantasy. If you're going into this expecting
She
your
doesn't
run-of-the-mill
she doesn't
romantasy,
claim it's a romantasy, though, at all. She said she doesn't think it's a romance,
she
she said it was a love story.
she said in another interview that it was a romantasy though that I had heard.
I did
That
not
was the
see
one that
that.
was like,
I
"It's a
saw that she didn't
romantasy."
say it was a romantasy, she said it was a love story, which is, like, similar in a vein about, like, normal people. Like, normal people's not a romance, but it is a love story. I think we had that discussion on the podcast.
I will have to find it. If I can find a clip or something, I'll pop it in here, or I'll at least link it because I do remember in an interview her saying that it was a romantasy,
I
but
did not see
I don't
her
wanna
say
get too
yeah.
caught up in that. Now, I did include some reviews. I don't know if we're even gonna talk about, like, the review demographic, if it's even of value, because so much is gonna change by the time this ends up getting posted and people actually end up finishing the book who are
Not
slower
crazy.
readers that I don't think it's relevant. Um
Well, 'cause
Necessarily to focus on those, so we might just talk about the book and our impression as we were going along. Chris and I did a buddy read on Storygraph. This is the first
yes.
time I've completed it. Usually I slack on it, but this time I wanted to be very intentional with my thoughts as I was reading so I could remember it because I was listening to the audiobook.
I will say the next time we do a buddy read, if you don't have any thoughts, you don't have to put no thoughts. You could just leave it blank. Cause I'd be like, "Ooh, Mariah said something. Let me see what it is." And I get to the point, it'd be like, "No thoughts." I'm like, "Okay, thank you for nothing.
I know
I
it's
hope you're
because
hungry for
it's not like
nothing."
on, Fable, I'm used to, like, it being organized into a chapter, so it's just percentages, and because we were reading 2 different editions, I wanted it to have the chapter heads to make sure that everything connected. So that's why I kept leaving those things because it said, "You and this person are reading 2 different editions."
I don't
So,
think that mattered though, because I just put in, like, what page I was on, and it would line up.
I just did the percentage because I didn't know
Well,
what
that's
else
what I
to
was
do.
saying too, because you coulda done the percentage, and then, like, you didn't have to put, like if you finished a chapter and didn't have any thoughts, I say just leave it at don't put the chapter, but, like, whenever you did have thoughts at
Also,
the
it was
chapter
for me to reference the book, so I could go back once I finally got
but
this
that's not how
book.
you buddy
This
read. This
That's
is
how
for
I buddy
that
no, that's
no,
just how I buddy
that's
read.
not that's not the buddy part, that's just a read then.
Yeah, I was being very intentional with my read. See, we get it. We're all on the same page now.
Mariah did have a complaint early on too that this wasn't historical fiction, which it is. You can have your own qualms. R.F. Kuang herself said that this book takes place in 1985, which is, say it with me all, historical, because it's
I
old.
think okay, this is where we're gonna get into it, is
Uh,
the
Look it
issue is
up.
the Goodreads. No, no,
Okay.
I'm just talking about the way that Goodreads categorizes things, which has been an issue on the podcast in the past where we've been going through, like, the genres and trying to figure out, like, what's happening, and it's just based on, like, user input and how they are organizing, like, their own shelves on Goodreads. So I am not reviewing this as a historical fantasy. Like, I think
But it is
either
a
I had seen
historical
people
fantasy.
online talk it's technically like a historical fantasy, but it did throw me because I wasn't expecting it to be so much more new than, like, Babel. I thought it was gonna be older because it was dealing with magic. My own issue, my own assumptions. Assumptions make an ass out of you and me. That's what they say about assume, right?
Yes.
So I'm not rating I need to be explicitly clear, I am not rating this as a historical fiction in the same way like,
But
this
it is a
reminded
historical
me of, like,
fiction.
of The Will of the Many so much where I was reading this, I was like, I thought this was a historical fiction because of the way people had described it. Um, this one it's technically a historical fiction, however, I wouldn't recommend it ever as a historical fiction. I wouldn't recommend this as a romance. I would
No.
recommend it for very little reasons.
I think I would recommend this if you like Greek mythology. I think this is a very much like in that realm of like classics in that way, if that makes sense. I think if you do like a lot of like classic like philosophy stuff. Why is Mariah showing off her shoes right now? What the? You look like you're about to give birth.
My leg fell asleep, so I had to readjust.
um, I think like people like that are in that realm, I think would really enjoy this because I think if you go into expecting so much stuff like Mariah did, expecting it to be this whole like Babel thing, me personally, I know nothing will ever live up to Babel again, so I don't think I ever expect anything to live up to Babel. But I think I gave this 4.25 stars because I did really enjoy it, and I also did read it really fast because me and Mariah, obviously, we did have to read it fast to make sure we were recording it today, but sometimes whenever we do that, I feel like I'm like, "I don't wanna read, I'm dragging myself to read," but this I'd be really excited to go back and read. Like, I was like, "Ooh, I can't wait to see what Alice and Peter are up to," but mostly Alice, I guess. Because I do think that the romance in this, I would not recommend this as a romance either. I do think the romance isn't very like strong. I think it is very much on a back burner, which if you're looking for that, but I think if you like journeys, I think you would like this because I think that's what I like a lot in books is like characters going on journeys. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think this book would have been stronger had they had not had a romance element at all, because it was just, like, so non-existent
I think they did
throughout
have
the entire
chemistry.
book. It was very sweet, but it was so, like, in the beginning stages that it doesn't really amount to anything, and I didn't feel like it was all that compelling. Like, they're nice, they're sweet together, but it wasn't like we got anything in these flashbacks of them having, like, these, like, heated moments, and there was, like, a tremendous amount of loss. I felt like the loss was more so just, like, Alice being alone, like, when Peter gets got. So
Mhm.
it didn't that was, like, the only thing you had to go off of, and even then, she doesn't have any sort of realization till, what, 90% of the way through the book, and she's sailing to the end to
Yeah.
meet, like, the Overlord of Hell, so it was just very like, why? I don't know. It just felt very lackluster,
Mariah
and I
also
was very
thought
sad. I wish it was more yearning. I was expecting a slow burn or something,
yeah.
and I was like, I thought maybe there would be I was like, "Maybe she's gonna commit and write some smut," but she did
Yeah,
not.
Mariah did, predict there was smut very early on. I said, "Do you really think
Is
there's
there
gonna be smut
smut?
in
No.
this?" I was like, I don't think there's gonna be any type of smut in this." And Mariah's like, "No, I think." I was like, "Okay." And there was not.
I was hopeful. I was like, "Maybe she'll full send it," but no. There is,
No.
however, graphic content in this
Yes.
that I wasn't expecting.
So, definitely read trigger warnings if that's something you need.
Was
No,
there?
I mean, not in the book, but I know on, like, Storygraph and stuff, you can check that stuff out before you, uh, read the book if you want. But there is like I did expect that, especially whenever that happened, because like there is almost like a similar scene of like My Dark Vanessa-esque where Alice does get like assaulted by like her teacher, but I feel like it could have been more so. Not like the scene being more so, but more commentary than what it was.
I don't think it worked for what it was, which I did make note of that as well, because if they had been undergraduate students and she was a lot younger, I think it would have made more sense with that power dynamic. But
I mean, I
with
think
this
it's
being the way it is, It's more like a boss and just, like, somebody who
Well, that's
is, like, your
still
authority
wrong.
above you. It is still wrong, but she's also way older. Like, there's so much that happens between the ages like, an undergraduate, which is 18 to 22, and then, like, your postgraduate, which is, like,
Mhm.
22 to 26 or more. Because even this I think it said that they were was it a 10-year? They were trying to get 10 I don't remember. There was something like, they were way older. They were, like, our age. And I was just like, "I don't know if this makes as much sense or is as impactful as it could be."
I
I think
think
you
it's
can use it
still
to explore, like, sexism and misogyny, but because of how I'm not trying to use this in a, like, pejorative sense, but, like, juvenile the story is because it's interesting that you brought up Percy Jackson. I did feel like it was
I love
very
Percy Jackson, so this ain't
on
an
par of that.
insult.
I was like I but to me, it read kind of like juvenile in some ways, the way that, like, the dialogue went, and I think it worked for Babel because they were very young students, whereas this, I don't think it worked, and I don't know that I actually wanna read the rest of her books if they're like this.
I
So
mean,
it
I'm pretty
really kind
sure
of gave me
at least in the
this is just
Poppy
not for
War
me
I
in
know the
that regard.
Poppy War, it is the main character is younger too, though, like 19, I think, at least in the first book. I'm pretty sure. Which I didn't necessarily think that, like, whenever I'm comparing it to Percy Jackson, I mean that in a positive. I love reading YA and stuff like that, and I never felt like the dialogue was cheesy or corny or silly or anything either.
In Percy wait, did you say in Percy Jackson or in this?
In this and in Percy Jackson. I mean, I mean, Percy Jackson obviously is very much younger, but I don't think this like, whenever I'm comparing this to Percy Jackson, I'm comparing it in a positive because I love Percy Jackson, and I love Heroes of
Well,
Olympus.
Percy Jackson makes sense because it's middle grade.
Yes, but I don't think this
So I
reads
get
young
that.
either.
But this reads young in the same way that Shadow and Bone and, like, Six of Crows and
I would
stuff, like,
not
it
agree with
reads a
that.
lot younger, but
No.
it
I don't think I would
is
agree with that at all.
but it's the subject content of it that is, like, a lot it's weird because, like, their dialogue and the way they interact with each other felt very juvenile, but the actual subject and, like, the exposition and this over explaining of the magic or, like, it I don't even know if I even understand how the magic system in this works because it was just a lot, but
I'm pretty sure they just draw pentagrams on the ground with chalk, and then stuff happens based on paradoxes within the world.
I don't think the magic system for what it was talked about really made a lot of sense, and that was and sometimes that's fine. I think it works better in Babbel, and I unfortunately am going to continue to make this comparison because Babbel's actually had some, like, cultural significance, and I could not articulate, like, the significance of this except for her wanting to talk about different schools of philosophy, and that's, like, all she's doing is she's going through hell, and you're, like, learning about the different schools of philosophy without actually it being explained like, "Oh, this is, like, metaphysics. Oh, this is epistemology. Oh, this is logic or ethics." Like, obviously, you get some with, like, um, Peter and his degree and his specialty,
Mhm,
and, like, calculus, you get, like, the mathematical, like, analytical aspect of it, but I was able to like, this is what she was trying to do in these different situations is to explain these things,
mhm.
and I was just, like, kinda bored.
I don't know, I didn't feel that I didn't ever really get bored, I think. I think I was pretty much locked in the whole time. I very much enjoyed that. I do think that there are definitely, like, some complaints because I do think, like, for me personally, like, especially whenever, like, the paradoxes and stuff were used, like, I don't really care about those because I think, like, paradoxes are kind of stupid anyways because they're just, like, I wouldn't say pretentious, but almost like do you know what I'm saying? Like,
No, it was. It was so pretentious in this, just like, "Oh my god, this never-ending stairwell." I was like, "Okay."
which is, like, I understand, like, that's the whole thing about, like, paradoxes, like, it could be, like, anybody talking about that, and I'd be like, "Okay, this is stupid," because I just think, like, the idea of paradoxes are stupid because, like, they're not real, you know? Where people are like, "Oh, but this is so contradictory," but it's like, it's not because it isn't.
I was like, if I really wanted to know about contradiction, I would just go back and reread Mao. I would read On Contradiction because you know what? He handled the topic very like, I was thinking through the whole thing, I was like, literally, like, Mao. What do we need Mao right now? Like, why and I don't know why of all the philosophers like, she referenced Nietzsche so many times in this, and I don't know why, but I wish if you could, like, look it up on your Kindle. I don't know how long it would take.
I don't know where my Kindle is.
To see how many times she actually
Tyler,
referenced
can you grab
his
my Kindle?
name. Do you have it on your phone?
Oh, I do, I guess.
You can do
Uh,
that way and just
to
go
be
in and, like,
honest, the real
search the
question
book
is
to
do I
see
know how to spell Nietzsche? The answer is no.
does anyone?
Never mind. N is it EI or IE?
There's a Z in it too. It's Nietzsche.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
That's a lot. Why? I don't know why. That was 7 times too many.
Wait,
She
no,
just
no, no,
left
no. It
out the
wasn't
1.
7. It's 6 because one of the times it has it twice for some reason. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 6. 6 times.
I found that,
I didn't
like,
feel like it was that
interesting, and
much.
it was enough for me to be like, "Okay, we get it."
Okay, Dante's
I will say of
referenced
this book
29 times though.
I expect that because Dante is, like, the rule, like, that's, like, the biggest thing they have to go off of is what he learned in, like, the Inferno and, like, how he escaped, so I would expect to hear Dante as a real person because he was in this book. So it made sense, it wasn't like he was a theoretical being,
Mhm.
he was, like, a real person that traversed hell, so that's they had that, and then they had one other guy that I can't remember who they were going through. In this book, I can't remember, it's a different narrator where they have it was, like, on magic, and they would explain stuff. I thought that was really cool.
Oh, did your audiobook at the beginning have an author's note too? Mentioned because the Kindle did
Probably.
have it. Well, because there's like
Oh, yes. Yeah.
the author's note about like her changing some scholar stuff. Well, because like Aristotle
Did.
was referenced a lot, Plato, Socrates, the major like early Greek ones, which I feel like they were
Okay,
referenced
now I
way
can
more
see
than
it.
Nietzsche.
I was like these, like, the on magic, I thought that was really clever and cute, and
Oh,
I
like
wish they
the
would've
italicized parts, which they weren't
I think
italicized.
it would've made more sense if these instead of Alice explaining things, if there would've been more like these, like, the way there was footnotes in Babel, I
Yeah,
would've liked that a
which
little bit
everyone
more because
hated the
then it would've
footnotes
made
in
the
Babel.
exposition make I know, maybe that's why she did it is because people, like, were complaining about it, but I thought it worked really well having those because
Mhm.
a lot of, at least political philosophy uses on to explore, like, different issues. So there's, like, the Karl Marx uses it, right? He uses it in a lot of his stuff. I know Engels uses it, Mao, Ho Chi Minh, like, a bunch of them use it, so I thought that was quite a clever thing. However, for whatever reason, R.F. Wong made 2 slights at Marxism, and I thought that
I
was
don't think they were
absolutely
slights at
despicable.
all.
No,
No?
like, I reread, like, the line that you quoted and calls himself a Marxist, but has not read Das Kapital, and then the next one was, "Professor Grimes could only be charged with behaving as befit his station, which was lofty, and Alice did not think this was as morally egregious as calling oneself a Marxist."
Yeah, I think she was saying that she did not think it was like calling herself a Marxist is not morally egregious, like Professor Grimes was. That's how I read that.
N no, she's saying that it's not as morally egregious as calling one's like, it is a morally egregious thing, so it's less egregious than calling oneself a Marxist. That's, like, what the line says. It's on page 92. This is between 91 and 92, and I know I have some other book mutuals who had got to that point and also made a note of that, and they're like, "What the fuck? Why did she put this in here?"
Which she hasn't talked about like what her political stance is either. Because I remember we were talking about that in Babel whenever we read Babel, but she did phrase socialism in a positive light, which this I don't think mentioned socialism at all specifically either.
No, which is so weird. So it's like, why would she doesn't talk about politics, she's not talking about revolutions, but she decides to include this in here. What was the utility of that? And it's such a small it can seem, like, very, like, nominal to even, like, discuss, but anything that is derogatory towards Marxism, especially when, like, the Global South, a lot of the revolutionaries are Marxist-Leninist, I think is very frustrating. It's very
Yeah, it is
Western.
weird.
I know she's very critical of the communist revolution and the Poppy War, like, that is
In
what
China.
my understanding of what it is. I know I don't know if she said anything about Tiananmen Square. Um,
I know she did talk about I remember she has an interview that I listened to forever ago. She talked about her dad was one of the student protesters, I think, at
oh, like the ones that were paid by the CIA?
I don't know if her dad was specifically paid by the CIA, or I don't maybe it wasn't her dad. I don't know. Somebody in relation was um like at the student protests and stuff like that, but I don't know, like she did seem like she has been I remember I sent you that thing because it was like an hour long like podcast sort of thing. I remember I sent it to you and I was like, this is sus. Because like her family is critical of like the Chinese government, which obviously and like Mariah and I will say, like obviously you can be critical of like the CCP. That is not a crime to be critical of it, but to be more critical of that than like the American governmental parties is where we have a problem with people that are on the
It does
left.
appear I will link this. It's in a interview by a website, Book Riot, so I don't know who exactly did it because 'cause I'm just reading the line, but RFK says it's every time I say that, I feel like I'm saying,
Robert Kennedy,
RFK or
RFK Jr.
yeah, junior. But
I know,
she
I think
said,
that too.
Rin is actually inspired by Mao Zedong. The question of the trilogy tries to answer is how does somebody go from being an irrelevant backwater peasant nobody's going to or no peasant nobody to being a megalomaniac dictator capable of killing millions of people. I've always been interested in how people become murderers or perpetrators of genocide.
Which
So, she doesn't like Mao. Like, I think that's pretty apparent, and I do. I love Mao.
I
I
think
love the
so
Cultural
funny
Revolution.
too.
I love what they were able to accomplish, and I'm sorry, this is probably going this is not gonna end up well, and you know what? I just don't care. I think a lot of what people understand about China is Western propaganda. It all comes from, like, Radio Free China, and obviously,
Mhm.
there is issues that happened, but you have to look at the material conditions before and
And
look at
this
what happened after,
after
and you can also see what bad things happened under, like, the like, a leap 5-year like, the Great Leap Forward,
the
and you
5-year
can
plan.
see that there was accountability and that they did their best to make everything, work out as best as they could, and we cannot ignore the role of, like, the United States, in, like, different embargoes and sanctions and what they have done to propagandize against China. Like, there's a reason that so many people when TikTok was getting banned, and it did end up getting banned for like a day. Were going on Red Note and they were seeing China for what it really was and seeing how different the society looks than what they were told. And I
Mhm.
think that's really important, especially after COVID-19 has like the anti-China, like xenophobic rhetoric that was happening. It really frustrates me. And to like see this and be like, oh, it's all bad or whatever, it's just
Which I
frustrating.
do think
So I don't know what her politics are. And this is technically not even relevant to
this
the
book
book, but it's frustrating.
well, because I do think it could be interesting to read because, like, obviously there are criticisms of what happened, like, during the Cultural Revolution and things like that, which Mariah and I are not gonna deny that everything was perfect and that everything was done in the best way that it could have possibly done. but also you have to look at what gets results and what gets things done in lots of ways. Where I have seen, at least like whenever I see people talking about like the Poppy War, it's like one of those books where it's like they always say like I support women's wrongs, which I think is really interesting. The fact that like obviously like the main character is based on Mao, and then people are like, at least a lot of Americans have a very negative like opinion and connotation of Mao, and then people read this and then they read it as almost like a good for her book too,
Yes, and I also saw I sent Kristen
which
this
is
on Threads, and
interesting.
I don't know if it's still around, but somebody was complaining about this book. They're like, "I hate this book because it's not a feminine rage book," and I read R.F. Kuang's books because they're feminine rage books.
Which
I was
is
like,
weird to
"Wow,
me.
we are reading these for very different things."
Yeah,
Like,
I was like, that's such a
I'm
weird
not reading that.
reason to DNF because like I feel like to DNF this, which would like the thing is that like feminine rage, whatever that means to you. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just like a I feel like that's like a term that like book talk is like I wouldn't want to say co-opted, but they use to like mean like anything where it's just like people acting like retaliation for what has been done to them is like female rage or like good for her sort of vibe sort of thing, which is really weird to me because I just think it's something that's where we don't have like a unionized working class, and so people don't like look at like other like fantasy novels where they're fighting against their oppressors and then viewing those and like the same sort of lens that they are viewing like I guess R.F. Kuang's books with that, which Babel's not even like a feminine rage book either, to be honest. Which it is like a rage
No.
book. It is a colonial rage, which I support, yes. You know? So it's really interesting.
It's just weird. I don't know how she wrote Babel, which is so, like, critical of capitalism and exploitation and talks about, like, workers and,
Maybe
like,
she's an
students
anarchist.
organizing. I don't she might be lipsock.
I
I
don't
wouldn't be
know.
surprised about that.
Or a
If
democratic
you don't know what that means,
socialist.
it means libertarian socialist. I
Yeah.
should be more clear with what I'm not just using, like, short
Like an
things that I
anarcho-socialist
type
sort
in
of thing
comments.
or whatever. And
I
comms.
she's either a democratic socialist or a libertarian socialist.
Which I
That is
feel
where my
like
mind is at, just based on how critical she is, and even within Babel, how critical she was of, um, oh my gosh, Robin's brother.
oh Grant.
He got a
I
whitewash name too, and
something
I
like
can't
that.
remember
I
what it
think
is
it's
off the top of my
Grant.
head. Anyways, it was very apparent that that's, like, where the commentary was meant to be, that, like, that was too radical, but also the reformist on the inside, they were too much. You need something, like, in the middle,
Yeah.
which I think we talked
Griffin.
about in the episode.
Griffin.
Griffin,
I
yeah.
knew I had the GR.
I stand Griffin.
Comrade Griffin.
Um, but yeah,
But well,
but
she
the
has
politics of
that
this book, I don't know if you wanna, like, circle back. I know it's got a little sidetracked.
little long-winded. Um,
Sorry, I just get really fired up. If
I
you don't
mean,
know, I mean, you're at this point, we're Marxist. This is
yeah,
very apparent. We've made this if you listen to what this is about, we are Marxist. I think we're both Marxist Leninists.
yeah.
We have been for a long time, so
Um,
sorry.
the thing about the politics is that I feel like this is a lot more of like a critique of like women in academia and like feminism within academia and stuff like that, which I've never been in academia or anything like that. You probably have more of a understanding of that than I personally do, but I do feel like it was fine, you know?
There was like nothing substantial. And like obviously I was very close. And I don't know how close I was to finishing my degree because it's been a while. I'm going back to school. Fun fact, but it wasn't anything. I don't it's very, like, generic, like, feminist, like, I get, like, she was very girl boss. She did wanted to work her way up. She's like, "This feminist movement, they're just a bunch of whiners, and they're
Yeah.
com" I don't
And then
know,
she
like, she
needed
didn't wanna be a part
feminism
of
to
it.
help her when she was assaulted by her teacher.
Exactly, and then we have was her name Helen, or
Yeah,
was it
Helen
Belinda?
Murray. Helen Murray. How would you forget?
Helen Helen was a real I was just making sure because I saw Belinda, I was like, "Maybe I misheard it." Helen was a real one, was like, "You can't just have feminism when you need it," and I was like, "You know what? You're right. You're so right about that," but the whole thing was just, like, between second wave feminism and not, and I don't think there was enough, which it being a historical, fiction, she could have done a lot more. She could have done so much more with that, and I was just wishing it would I know it was set in hell, but I was wishing there was more to kind of engage with, like, the material conditions of the time and kind of, like, have that because you get that in the beginning. You're talking about, like, nuclear and the environment, and you're getting a lot of these other little tidbits of world events that are happening, and that
Mhm.
kind of just, like, faded away to focusing on just what Alice was doing, what Peter was doing, and Professor Grimes. It was fine, but I was just hoping there would be, like, more world events to be able to identify with and be able to talk about and make it just a
I
little
do
bit more add a
think
little more sauce, but she didn't have it. It was just very, like
that was what's so different about this book too compared to like Babel was because like by page 10 you're in hell. You know what I'm saying? Versus Babel, we start with Robin as a very young child, you know, and his life like leading up. We get like a good like I feel like 100 pages or so growing up with Robin before he even goes to was it Oxford? I guess in that one because this one's
yeah.
Cambridge, I think.
Why are they all British?
I think that's because that's where Kuang got her something.
This
I don't know.
book was had an English accent. Did you know that?
No, I
The
didn't.
whole thing.
Well, that makes
The
well,
whole
that's
fucking thing.
interesting because Alice is supposed to be American. Alice is
I think there were
American.
some
She
parts
talks
of it
about
where it was
she,
less, but it was. Oh, it just seemed like I'm pretty sure it was. Maybe I have it on Audible.
You're just gaslighting yourself into listening to a British person. It wasn't
Maybe
even
yeah. I need to pick a chapter.
British.
That's British. Okay, I did. I was like, "Did I not listen to it
But
in a British accent the whole time?" I did.
well, Alice is not supposed to be British. She's clearly stated. I think she states she's from Texas or something.
Yeah, she's, like, not
So that's really
she's
weird.
not
Which
from
I
them, so especially she transferred there. So why the fuck is her internal dialogue in a British accent?
I thought it could have been interesting because I imagine she would have been in England for like a long time. If it was like those mix, you know how like people that live in England for a really long time, if they're American, they kind of like develop a little bit of a British accent, but not super strong. You know, that could
Yeah,
have been
but
interesting,
that was
but
I heard it and I was just like, "Oh," my eyes started twitching. It's like, "I gotta do this. I gotta
that
send
is
it."
really weird though.
Um,
Which I imagine R. Kwong probably didn't have control over who did the audiobook narration though.
I'm just saying if I ever write a book, I'm having control over everything. I'm supreme dictator
I don't think
over
you get
the
that route.
genres. I am de
That's
I'm
not how that
determining
works.
who is doing my narration.
No.
It's my it's my
I
world
think
and
you might
Walt's world.
have to stick to publishing like fiction on Wattpad then or something because you're not gonna get as
And
much
it'll be
creative
great.
control as you want. Just write some like Mal fan
Um,
fiction, which is all the popular I guess is, huh?
I see, and then I heard that and that told it turned me off from wanting to read it, and then I just read that one line from that
Now we have to read it.
interview, and I know we don't have to read it, but
um,
unfortunately, it's not gonna be a happy review.
but the thing is that what is the thing is that I think me and Mariah too, we can also like enjoy stories without having to enjoy the author entirely politically. You know what I'm saying? Because like how many Marxists are we really reading? You know? Like
We need to read China Mieville.
what's that?
China Mieville wrote Paradiso Station, and they're a Marxist. It's a very
I don't even
popular
know what that
book.
is. I ain't heard of it. What did you say? Para
Paradiso Station, I think.
I feel like you just made that up.
No, I'll find it. I'll send it to you anyways. I don't I feel like we've talked a lot about, like, R. Kuang. I don't think we've talked a lot about the actual book because it's very difficult to discuss and there's very few there's a lot happening, but also at the same time there's not that many characters.
No, because you're mostly only following Alice and her journey to get Professor Grimes back. I did like how R. Kwong did, like Lord Yama or Hades or whatever you want to call him, because obviously the way that the underworld is typically portrayed is like mostly like a Greek thing. Like I feel like because this really isn't even like a Christian version of hell either. Because I mean, not that I know
Yeah.
too much about like Christianity, but I do like the way that hell is that it feels like a place rather than like a this cover's ass, bro.
If you were wondering, I just sent over the Goodreads link to the book that I was talking about. It'll be on the screen if you were curious.
Urban fantasy? I hate urban fantasies. Sorry.
I'll read it though because China Mieville is a Marxist, so I gotta do it. We gotta do it at some point. Anyways, sorry, we're
Yeah.
sidetracked.
Anyways,
I will say though, so the original like Dante's Inferno is what influenced a lot of what current Christians think hell is supposed to be like because actually in the Bible there's not a lot. There's not a lot to go off of. There is a lake of fire
in
and
eternal
it talks
damnation,
about torment, eternal torment. Obviously, there's like a lot of different realms of thought surrounding it with like a Christian philosophy, but there's not a lot. So a lot of modern day Christians have it in their head that there's gonna be like Cerberus and shit that are gonna be in there like ripping them apart.
which is fire. I
It's
love
weird.
Cerberus. That's the three-headed dog. That which in this he's not really used because he's supposed to be like guarding stuff, and he's not really guarding anything in this book. I guess you would say
You know what's interesting though?
because
This is I don't know, it's kind of it's relevant. It's the religion aspect, is that there is Christians who believe like because you die, right? You die, your soul is going down there, that God constructs this, like, eternal body that can still process sensation. So when you're getting torn apart and burned and all of these places, you're feeling that forever. However, in this book, nobody can feel anything,
yeah,
which
they're like
I thought
ghostly
was
apparitions.
it was all, like, mental like, you still have, like, emotional capacity, so it's all, like, limited to your own head and your
Which
sanity.
was really interesting to me though, because a lot of the stuff is like very like academic too, or it's like the pride section is like a library and stuff, right? And I feel like there's probably plenty of people who suffer from like the sin of pride and they might not even be able to read. So I'm
I did
like
not like how hell was a library. I didn't like how it was a hell was
everything is like
a no, it
campus
wasn't a library.
based.
It was a college campus,
Yeah,
and I
I
was
just thought
like,
that was really
"Oh."
weird because it feels like to me it almost feels like elitist. You know what I'm saying? Cuz not everybody is going to be able to relate through that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's so many other people that are suffering that are not like related to academia at all. So then, like, them going to hell and like having to write an essay, I guess would be a type of hell for them, but it also doesn't make sense for like the suffering that I imagine that
No, it's not like
equates
a
for their
universal
crimes.
suffering of pride. It's just for academics. Like this is the only hell that could exist is for like these higher education students.
Maybe
I
it
don't get it.
reforms
It's a
to
really
like
weird setting.
I don't know because I would love to see like our Kwong's version of hell for like a regular man that's like not, you know what I'm saying? Because like they're not gonna care
But
about
that's the
half that
thing is I
stuff.
think it was because you have the guy that's kind of following him around. It starts with a G, right? What the
Greatest?
no, not Virgil. You're right. But no,
Greatest?
yeah, yeah. Greatest. He was like a murderer. Like he was just a like a
I wanna
dude that
know
was
who he
like
was,
a
though, because he
murderer.
was obviously, like, somebody. Like, do you think that's supposed to be, like, Ted Bundy or something? Like,
But it's like, is Ted Bundy's idea of hell
hell,
like
writing an
is it would it be
essay?
formatted in it, it doesn't
Well, that's
fucking
what I'm
make any
wondering
sense.
too
And
because
that's what I was getting frustrated with because I get what she was trying to do, but if you're going to be inclusive in this way and you wanna talk about these things,
It's
why
not
would you not construct it in a way that's, like,
everybody's going
in do you know,
to
like
suffer.
I don't get
Make your
it. I
suffering
don't get it.
inclusive for everyone, thank you.
Please.
Um, well, because, like, it was just really like, I liked the characterization of Greatest because I thought it was really interesting to, like, the idea that, like, hell was more about rehabilitation rather than it was just, like, eternal suffering. You know what I'm saying? Because obviously some people's crimes are more extreme than others, so people do deserve, like, to be held responsible for their actions that were committed. But, like but, like, Alice, like, her sins in, like, this book and, like, whenever she eventually goes to hell or whatever, I don't think are, like, as major or anything as, like, somebody who raped and murdered people. And you know what I'm saying?
It is a very strange thing, especially essentially all of these philosophy people that are going to hell should have been able to identify the contradictions and be able to move on to the next one with the area that they're locked in. Couldn't they have like,
Yeah.
they didn't lose that. Why would they not be able to just move on to the next one if they're all that's the thing, it doesn't make any sense because
Well,
then
that's
it's,
the
like,
thing is that
positing
hell
that
doesn't
people
have
who are
rules.
so, like, philosophically, like, advanced that they could just move on and, like, do whatever they want, traverse it, and I think that's a really weird place to make that. I don't it's fucking weird, and, like, I got upset okay, I think that Peter having a invisible, disability was nice. I don't but he gets killed off so early. So it's like, it's weird that you have
I
this and
don't
you wanna,
think
like,
Peter
talk
should have
about
came
it,
back
and
to
then also he,
life.
like, martyred himself. I think he should have stayed dead too. I think it would at least been more impactful for the main character. She would have actually had to
Yeah.
reconcile with her
Yeah.
issues, not just
Yeah.
like, "Okay, it's been a couple days of me sailing in hell, and I'm gonna hack my way out of this by sacrificing Grimes's soul," which
Mm.
I think it was pretty much set up that I thought from the beginning that that's what Peter was going to do, was use Grimes's soul to do something, but I thought he was gonna save Alice because for whatever reason, I thought there was, like, only one ticket out, but I think it was just out of the one area
Yeah.
that
Well,
they could
I
only
imagine I thought
figure
that,
out.
like, Grimes was going to Grimes. I thought that Peter would have to sacrifice himself so that Grimes could come back to the real world because, like, that was what Alice wanted. But then Alice didn't even want him to come back to the real world for anything. She just wanted him to come back to the real world and suffer. It's like you can't just let him suffer in hell then? Like, what difference does it make?
I thought it was funny. I was like, "Okay, I did not expect her to say that."
Yeah.
It
She's
was
like, I got
very,
these
like,
bucket of
so out of
guts
pocket.
for you to live in.
Um, super funny. I like that, but, I
Which
mean, that's about as unhinged woman as you're gonna get.
I think that's interesting too. Like, this seems so different from her other works. Like, obviously, not that we've read again Yellowface or the Poppy War, but I know like the Poppy War is supposed to be really tragic too, which I feel like this isn't a tragedy in any way. Like, Babel was tragic. Like, I was crying at the end of that. I know you were too. So,
I was
where
not
this.
emotionally moved by this book
No, I was
in
just
any
like,
meaningful way. I was frustrated because I wanted it to be and I know it's, like, not fair to attribute something to be, like, this peak piece of literature that you love, but she has set the bar very high. Like, people love her work. There's people that just every book she reads is a five-star book to them. So I was like, "Okay, like, I'm here. We're doing it." And this just fell very flat, and I'm bummed. I'm bummed. The book is beautiful. The book is beautiful.
yeah, the
She
sprayed
really
edges.
popped her pussy with this one. Does yours, when you take it off, have the gold plating on the inside?
Yeah,
Or not gold plating, the foil?
this. This mine. It's almost like kind of ugly orange though. I feel like in real life. I don't like the
I wanna
inside
know
cover
what
as
makes this a
much.
limited edition copy that I
The sprayed
ordered. They were
edges.
like, "Special limited edition."
Yeah, it's the same thing as what everyone else
From
got. Sprayed
Barnes, though, it was
edges.
specifically
Yeah, it's the
no,
same
like, the
thing.
one on Barnes, I saw it. It was supposed to be different. It was supposed to have extra shit in it.
I don't think so. It might have something different at the end.
I'll look it up on my email, see if I can find it.
I don't really think. I think all the special editions are the same though. Like they're all
But
special
I don't
editions.
really have anything else to say about this. I thought she gave passing mentions to different like political things. Like we got some ideas like classism and academia, misogyny, sexism, disability. I'm looking at like the different things. I just wish it would have been more. Like that would have been so cool if it was able to be incorporated in a
Well, that's why it's not
more.
a
I just
5-star read
more.
either. Um, yeah, I guess that's it. Next week's episode is going to be Dungeon Crawler Carl 5, The Butcher's Masquerade. And also, if you want to join our book club, Live Pod on Fable, we are reading Parable of the Sour by Octavia Butler. I think that's it though. So thank you and good night.